almost like the Flashpoint, where it starts, one of the key matrix lines that will help shatter this statist centralized system.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Flashpoint Radio, and I am your host, Jay-Z. It is Friday, August 10th, 2012. Only my second report of the week due to extra burdens at work and scheduling conflicts watching my new daughter. I'm not complaining in that regard, though. Being that it is Friday, though, we are going to spotlight the financial world. Economics, Wall Street, government spending, your money, how to save it, how to lose it, and what might be in store for all of us as American citizens. I would like to start this evening by focusing on a rally coming up on September 22nd, a Saturday at noon, downtown St. Louis at the Federal Reserve Building, 1 Federal Reserve Bank Plaza, Broadway and Locust Streets. Put on by numerous groups here in St. Louis. If you're within the sound of my voice in Missouri, come on down and join us for a peaceful protest against the private Federal Reserve and the reason we are going broke and the economic collapse is imminent. And if you have a Federal Reserve in your city, find out who's putting on your protest or start one yourself. September 22nd, National In the Fed Day. It's on a Saturday. There's no reason you can't make it. Let's get right to the financial news of the week. We will start this evening with an article from Reuters. Exclusive. U.S. banks told to make plans for preventing collapse. U.S. regulators directed 5 of the country's biggest banks, including Bank of America and Goldman Sachs, to develop plans for staving off collapse if they face serious problems, emphasizing that the banks could not count on government help. Oh, thanks. You indebted our grandchildren in 2008 when you gave all these banks help, and now it's clear that there is no sign of recovery in the economic future of this country or the world. And so the Federal Reserve and the SEC and other governmental agencies and quasi-governmental agencies are asking banks to make preparations. Funny, most of these banks are owners of the shares of the private Federal Reserve. So do you really think they're not going to get help from the Fed when it comes to? Considering this, from Yahoo Finance, U.S. will not prosecute Goldman Sachs employees for abacus deals. Neither Goldman Sachs nor its employees will face U.S. criminal charges relating to trades they made during the financial crisis that were highlighted in a 2011 U.S. Senate report, Justice Department said on Thursday. So if you're not getting a bailout, you're getting the Justice Department to drop cases against you. So glad Goldman Sachs does not need to face the scrutiny of a courtroom, but they did pay the SEC $550 million in July of 2010 without admitting wrongdoing. So just a drop in their financial bucket to get them out of hot water and out of the view of regulators, which those regulators do nothing but allow their crony friends to do whatever you want with our money. And let's look at what our government is doing with our money from the Wall Street Journal. Postal Service registers $5.2 billion loss. Now, a lot of this loss comes from accumulated pensions in the Postal Service, and they have one of the wackiest pension systems of all government agencies. They've been saving and accruing pension funds for decades, and they have quite the pension surplus, but the government forces them to continue to pump money into that pension fund. One thing to note, the Postal Service has criticized the Senate plan, that's a plan to restructure and reduce costs, has criticized the Senate plan for not going far enough. For example, the bill makes it difficult for the Postal Service to implement its plan to cut deliveries to 5 days a week. So the Postal Service itself is telling Congress, cut our budget, help us reduce costs. They want to cut it from 6 days of service to 5 days of service. I would say, great job. Cut it to 4 days of service. I'd say raise the price of postage. There is no competition. So the post office itself is asking to do these cuts, to make these cuts. But Congress, because of, well, cronyism and because of their constituents not re-electing them if they cut the postal service in their district will not allow these cuts to take place, which instead of allowing us to have something that I actually agree with, some form of government-funded mail service, they're going to let it collapse. And then who knows what will happen. You know how much it costs to mail a letter at FedEx? A lot less than 42 cents or whatever the going rate for a stamp is. I think it's quite amazing that I can mail a letter from St. Louis to California and have it get there in like 3 days for less than 50 cents. Moving along from the Daily Caller, emails. Geithner Treasury drove cutoff of non-union Delphi workers' pension. So back in 2009, when they bailed out the automotive industry, namely General Motors, they restructured debts and they restructured all of those obligations that General Motors had. Including that was Delphi, which is a parts manufacturer, one of the largest. And emails obtained by the Daily Caller show that the U.S. Treasury Department, led by Timothy Geithner, was the driving force behind terminating the pensions of 20,000 salaried retirees at the Delphi Auto Manufacturing Company. Just so happens they funneled that money to union jobs. These were non-union jobs, and our government picked winners and losers again, and guess who was the loser? Non-union workers who, well, believe they're getting paid for what they actually are doing and do not need a leg up on the competition as unions feel they need. And, well, that one organization that you hate every April, the IRS. From CBSNews.com, the IRS discouraged fraud detection in ID program. The Internal Revenue Service has been looking the other way instead of rooting out fraud when people apply for tax identification numbers. And these tax identification numbers are used by immigrants, legal and illegal immigrants. It's a program put in place to get immigrants to pay taxes. And well, turns out that this program meant to get immigrants to pay taxes is allowing them to defraud you and me. There is a potential that erroneous tax refunds are going to non-qualifying individuals, allowing them to defraud the federal government of billions of dollars, investigators wrote in this report. Yes, and these billions of dollars are going to a lot of illegal immigrants. So, instead of making it easier to become a citizen and making it easier to tax these people, they've decided to add this tax identification program, which is allowing for more rampant fraud. Who do you think the illegal immigrants are going to vote for when they vote illegally? The people that have allowed them to defraud normal American citizens of their tax dollars. What would you do? What would they do to you if you defrauded the government? You have a paper trail. It's called a Social Security number. Guess what? You don't have to give your child a Social Security number. Bet you didn't know that little known fact. From Infowars.com, via the American Dream, more than 100 million. Sorry, it's tough to get that out. More than 100 million Americans are on welfare. Yep. 100 million getting funds from the federal government. That's from Medicaid and the food stamp program. That doesn't include Medicare and other Social Security benefits. That is simply Medicaid and food stamps. You tell me we're not in a depression. And the next bubble to burst, so says Zero Hedge in Wall Street Journal, the student loan bubble. Bernanke just assured that the student loan bubble will be the next financial stability issue. In 2007, he said that problems in the subprime market seem likely to be contained and are no cause for concern. And well, we know what happened to that industry after 2007. Thank you, Federal Reserve Chairman Benjamin Bernanke. And just this week, he stated, I don't think student loans are a financial stability issue. And if you look at these graphs linked on this, linked from this story, links below, you'll see the exponential growth in the amount of student loan debt that American citizens are carrying. So not only is college a scam where they're teaching you lies and bringing your kids there just to party, yes, they're saddling you and your children with mortgages that you will never be able to pay off and that you can never file for bankruptcy from. This is an important article because this is possibly one of the next bubbles to burst, and it will send shockwaves throughout the entire nation, because so much is connected to the education system in this country, the secondary or the higher education system. It is disgusting. And from MoneyMorning.com, Bill Gross, the so-called king of bonds, said investors will flat out lose money if they continue employing the buy and hold strategies of the past. A very important article as well. Quote, "It's a catastrophic pattern in the markets. One we believe could soon hasten an economic collapse, a chain of events that could lead to massive inflation, the swift fall of the dollar, and a total halt to the way we currently live our lives." It was so alarming that they presented this to Fortune 500 companies, 16 world governments, and the United Nations. They also said, "We found the same catastrophic pattern in our energy, food, water, and economic systems, and these systems could all implode at the same time. Food, water, energy, money, everything. If that's not a reason to start preparing you and your family personally to get through some form of economic collapse, I don't know what is." Who has to slap you in the face? Here are two stories just to highlight why you need to start preparing and what might be coming. From the Associated Press, higher gas prices expected after refinery fire. Analysts expect West Coast gas prices to rise beyond $4 a gallon after fire knocked out a key section of one of the nation's largest oil refineries. Yes, a fire out in California instantly is going to raise your gas. Why? Because the flow of information is so instant that gas station owners, and large gas station corporations know that they can raise gas prices because you've read the news and you believe that that is a cause to raise gas prices, even though the gas in those tanks underneath those pumps has been in there for days and weeks in some cases and was bought at a much lower price. Just watch. Gas prices will go up. They will probably bottom out, though, come the end of October and the beginning of November to embolden the Obama administration into buying votes. And finally, we just said the food and energy industries may collapse. From MarketWatch, USDA slashes corn yield production forecast. Yes, the drought that has ravaged the Midwest has U.S. Department of Agriculture saying Friday that their forecast for corn production is about 17% lower than previously thought, and it is looking like it might be at its lowest since 2006. And you know what the government does. When there is a problem, they will underestimate. When everything's good or when there's something positive, they will overestimate. So if it will be as lowest since 2006, you can bet that it will be much worse. I live in the corn belt. I live and I see the corn growers in this country, and their corn's dead. And guess what? It feeds a lot of things. And the ethanol industry steals it from food production and from livestock producers right out from under their noses. Why? Because the government mandates it. So yes, we've learned today that the government is stealing your money, allowing illegal immigrants to steal your money by billions of dollars. They are not going to prosecute people like Goldman Sachs. At the same time, they're telling them to prepare for economic collapse. So they're telling their friends, prepare for economic collapse. I'm telling you, my friends, prepare personally for economic collapse. Food, water, health, supplements, gold, silver, guns, and ammo. Get it, save it, hide it. Don't let the government know where it's at. That might save your life in the future. That's it for Finance Friday here on Flashpoint Radio. I thank you for joining me. Come and see me next time. God bless, and keep your eyes to the stars.